Kaito saw his brother was looking outside the window. Out of curiosity, he followed the line of his brother's vision. Kaito sighted a figure standing on the rice field that was completely dressed in white. All of a sudden, the figure starts wriggling like it is dancing. The figure kept wriggling. It was becoming more vigorous, and no ordinary human could bend the way it was bending. He asked what the figure was. His brother replied to him, "I know what it is, but it's better not to know." At the end of the day, Kaito's brother developed mental illness. The second story is about the author's visit to his grandmother's house as a child. During the Ghost Festival, he and his elder brother were playing in the rice fields. All of a sudden, his brother looks at the scarecrow's direction. When the author looks at his brother, he sees a white figure far away at the back of the scarecrow that was moving from left to right. They thought it was an improvised scarecrow at first, but then the white figure kept wiggling even when the wind stopped. His brother could not believe what he was seeing, so he went back to get a telescope so that he can get a closer look at the white figure. All of a sudden, while the brother was making use of the telescope, he became pale and was sweating like someone who had seen something horrible. With fear, he dropped the telescope to the ground and told the author it's better not to know. Out of curiosity, he picked up the telescope, trying to see what his brother had seen. The author's grandfather stopped him. Immediately, his grandfather took them home. Unfortunately, his brother starts acting strange once they get home. He starts wiggling his body and laughing like someone who is mentally ill, behaving just like the white figure. By the time the author and his mother were ready to go back to the city, the condition of his brother had not gotten better, so his grandmother suggests that he should stay in the countryside. Upon hearing the news, the author started crying, knowing fully well that his brother will never be the same when next he sees him again. I'm sure you already noticed both versions of the story have something in common, which the two events happened in the countryside, and the victims are brothers, and the ending where we have the two elder brothers suffering from mental illness. I hope you enjoyed today's video. John, help me. The difference between... John, help me, he said while falling on the ground. We ran to him in shock as he started convulsing. He started bleeding from his own eyes, and flesh started burning on his body. We looked at Nama again. Her eyes were even bigger, and now her smile was also huge and evil, and horrendous teeth were showed in her mouth. She screamed at us from the other side of the room. Hello, everybody. Today, we bring you the burning process. My name is John, and I am a musician. I am 30 now. Some time ago, in my 20s, I played in a heavy metal band. I guess you can say we were in the extreme branch of the genre. Our band's name, lyrics, the dark, almost spiritual energies that were present in those events. And our drummer, Sven, says to me in private, "John, I don't know if you noticed it, but there's a woman staring at us for quite a while. She's sitting alone in the next table." I looked in that direction, and indeed, I saw her. A beautiful woman, with unusual, almost unhuman, green eyes, looking in our direction. The rest of her facial features, both mouth and nose, were quite discreet, as if giving their space to those hypnotic eyes. She seemed very interested in whatever around us. "Yes, I see her," I said to her. "How could I not? I'll be back." As I came closer to her table, her eyes were now pointed at me. She seemed to be in her early 30s. I spoke. "Hello, can I take a seat by your table and speak to you?" I asked. "Yes, please." I was going to take the initiative myself. Allow me to go straight to the point. I am a manager, working with a black metal music band. I like your band, and I want you guys to record a small demo for us in a couple of days in this address," she said in a low yet commanding voice, handing me a card. Obviously, this was great news for us. Without second thoughts, I agreed. She introduced herself before getting up and leaving. "My name is Nama, as you can read in the card. I will meet your bandmates in 2 days then, in that address. Don't forget. Goodbye, John," she said, while shaking my hand, and finally showing what seemed to be a smile. Her eyes seemed even bigger and piercing. I went back to my friends in the bar, very excited to tell them the news, and at the same time wondering how that woman knew my name. We didn't have the habit of saying our names on stage. Oh well, she must have heard it somewhere. 2 nights later, after driving for quite a while, we finally reached our destination. very far away from urban manifestations. It was somewhat in a hidden area, surrounded by many trees, and with few houses nearby. We got out of the car, bringing everything with us. There was no sign on the studio. We rang the bell. A few seconds later, the door opened. We got in. It was dark at first, but then we saw lights in the corridors. Nama was there, waiting for us. "Welcome," she said, in her expressionless way. "I'm glad you made it. I'm very excited with us working together." Her eyes really seemed like they were glowing. I introduced my friends to Nama, and she pointed us to the studio's recording room. "Okay, you know how this works. I will be right outside, in the mixing room. We can see each other through the glass, and there are also microphones which will allow us to communicate. Please start playing the first song when the red light appears. Good luck," she said, with an unusual big smile. Nama left our room, closing the door with a big noise. We could now see her in the mixing division. The red light in our room was on, and we started playing the first song. For some reason, I wasn't feeling so good, but I couldn't really understand why, and I realized the same was happening with my friends. It was like something was eating me from inside. Nama, looking at us, her eyes looking bigger than ever, shining green just like absinthe, kept telling us to repeat songs as time went by. We were sweating. We were feeling sick. We wanted to stop, but Nama refused. "Okay, one more take." And then I saw one of my friend's hair, Thomas, becoming white. His eyes were frozen. His body was shaking. He was literally getting old in front of my eyes. "John, help me," he said, while falling on the ground. We ran to him, in shock, as he started convulsing. Thomas had aged at least 50 years, but that wasn't all. He started bleeding from his own eyes, and flesh started burning by itself in his body. We looked at Nama again. Her eyes were even bigger. She, as a whole, was bigger, and now her smile was also huge and evil, and horrendous teeth were showed in her mouth. She screamed at us from the other side of the room. "Keep playing. Need to feed on your fears, and on your vital energies and soul." Her voice sounded like a growling crocodile. Her face was now becoming green, rotten green, not like the shiny absinthe green of her eyes, which now carried dark flames as pupils. "I see it now, Nama. The dark goddess and chaos demon. I thought it was her artistic name, or something like that. But no, I was in front of the real, ancient, primordial entity, Nama herself." We refused to keep playing. Of course, we couldn't leave the room. It was locked, and the glass was too strong to be broken, and we were too weak. As we refused to keep playing, she sent images, both to our minds and to our eyes. Images of our biggest fears. Fears that she would turn into reality if we didn't obey. I saw my sister being murdered in barbaric ways that made me scream of pain. I saw an unknown baby being eaten alive by rats. I couldn't see anymore. My other bandmates, the remaining ones, were already dead. A puddle of flesh, blood, bones, and entrails, within 1 hour. I kept playing. Nama would take my life. The images stopped, and then I fell to the ground. I woke up in a hospital several weeks later. My condition was serious. I aged decades, but I survived. I told my story. No one believed me. The real studio owners got there on the next morning and saw the horrendous scene. What happened was real. This was some years ago. I am 30 now, but my body is close to 90. I will die soon, as my soul did in that day. I hope you enjoyed today's video. Have you ever heard or encountered any paranormal event? Let us know in the comment below. We will draw your story and share it with the world. Don't forget to click like, subscribe to this channel, and hit the bell. Please share it to your friends if you like this video. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you in the next video. Bye-bye. Nervous as I was, I found the courage to ask my question. Between me and the ghost is that they were... Nervous as I was, I found the courage to ask my question. As a ghost hunter, what was the most frightening thing you recall from your adventures? I was sitting pretty far away from him, and yet, in spite of that, I watched his expression clearly change. A sight we'll never forget. The ghost hunter forced out a mild laugh. Hello everybody, I'm the Rubber. Today, we bring you a famous ghost hunter. Tell me what his scariest moment was. During my college years, a popular ghost hunter was invited to our campus as a guest speaker by the Student Activity Council. The paranormal is something I've always been fascinated with, so eagerly made my way towards the auditorium. Although I was unfamiliar with this ghost hunter, but his background impressed me, as did the plans he had on the horizon. The event was back in 2005. This man was small in stature, he had a receding hairline and a white beard. I was fascinated with his view of the afterlife. We were exposed to video footage of the investigations he went on. The ghost hunter's riveting photo collection was just as interesting as the stories he shared with us. The presentation ended with a Q&A session. I certainly didn't want to let such an opportunity slip through my fingers, so my hand might have gone up faster than anyone else. The ghost hunter spotted me, pointed and smiled at me, waiting for me to speak. Nervous as I was, I found the courage to ask my question. As a ghost hunter, what was the most frightening thing you recalled from your adventures? I was sitting pretty far away from him, a significant distance from where the ghost hunter stood, and yet, in spite of that, I watched his expression clearly change, a sight we'll never forget. The ghost hunter let out a mild laugh, but it was clearly forced. He then started to talk about an elementary school he explored that had been abandoned. The hunter was looking for a poltergeist. Suddenly, his flashlight began to lose power. I recall being quite confused, as I didn't really find his story very scary, and I couldn't understand why someone whose career involved hunting ghosts would find such a mundane instance so frightening. The ghost hunter hastily moved on to another question from a different student. When the presentation was over, the students made their way out of the auditorium, not wanting to get caught in a crowd. I discreetly slipped out from another exit. It was there that I saw the hunter having a cigarette while sitting on a wooden bench. I had hoped he wouldn't see me as I walked by him, but no such luck. The ghost hunter shouted my way. I looked over at him as he patted an empty seat to his right. He invited me to the bench. After a moment's hesitation, I proceeded to walk over to the bench and sit beside him. I wasn't being completely honest with you, the hunter said to me. What I said was not actually the most frightening moment I had been through. Yeah, I replied. That's what I figured. The ghost hunter proceeded to tell me the truth. When I was a much younger man in the 1970s, something happened to me that I will never forget. I was still fairly inexperienced as far as paranormal activity went. I essentially took the jobs that others with more experience rejected. The people I worked for usually had broken minds or were schizophrenic. They thought that either kids were playing pranks on them or phantoms were chasing them. My work generally involved a routine cleansing before moving on to my next gig. I was quite ecstatic when I got one particular call, though. The client I spoke to claimed that a demon was haunting his house. He went on about possessions and physical manifestations. He even claimed that multiple I was looking for. The only thing that concerned me was the teenage son that lived in the home. The individual I spoke to said that his son was possessed, violently attacking members of the family. The son attacked his older female cousin. Naturally, before I visited the home, I wanted to make sure I was completely prepared. Some of the things I brought with me included holy water, crucifixes, sage, and even a small loaded handgun. Sadly, when I got there, no paranormal activity was apparent. For the next 2 weeks, I investigated the home thoroughly. The equipment I used was cutting edge for the era. I spoke to the son, the one who was apparently possessed. From my perspective, he may have been psychologically disturbed, maybe even depressed. Possessed by a demon, though? Not from my perspective. I told the family that a child psychologist was better suited to help their son. On the final day of my stay in their house, the family took the boy to a psychologist I recommended. His parents came back before midnight, retiring to their room for the night. I spent some time by myself in their kitchen reviewing my findings. All that they described to me could have been dismissed as family hysterics. Perhaps they were in denial about their son's need for mental health treatment. Nothing felt out of the ordinary, except for the drains in the basement. That house was built in the early 1900s, and its immaculate condition was kept pristine. The character and woodwork of the home was meticulously preserved. The only updates it received were the ones that were necessary, such as electricity and modern plumbing. The only one area in the house that wasn't maintained was the basement. The clammy stone walls were gathering moisture, making it a breeding ground for mold and spiders. That's why it didn't surprise me to see this windowless room left alone by the family. Sure, it felt spooky, mostly because of the single light that hung from the ceiling and its broad cement floors. But there was nothing worth reporting about the room itself. The only thing I couldn't figure out, though, was why there were 4 large, slotted drains in the basement. The home wasn't a mansion, so 4 large drains seems unnecessary to me. As I sat by myself pondering this, when suddenly I heard a faint sound, a thump. I didn't give the sound a second thought until I heard it once more, this time louder. A staircase led to the floor above me, which winded up out of the kitchen's corner. That's where this noise was coming from. I didn't think too much of the sound at first. I just assumed it's from someone in the family. But when I looked up, I saw it. It was coming down the stairs. It wasn't walking or floating. It was just moving down the stairs straight at me. Whatever I was looking at didn't have any eyes. It was faceless. And yet I knew that it was staring directly at me. That's when I heard it speak. I couldn't tell how it was able to speak. It didn't even have a mouth. Maybe it had telepathy of some sort. I'll never forget the words it said to me. "You know what he did to us." I immediately bolted from the house, leaving the family alone with whatever that thing was. I jumped in my car and drove. I just kept on driving and did not stop for at least 30 miles. At that point, I realized the distance I had driven. I pulled the car over and gave the family a call from a nearby payphone. The family moved away afterward. I wasn't able to continue the investigation. My report stated insufficient evidence as the reason. Years had passed. I decided to conduct some research based on my experience. What that thing said to me was burned in my memory. "You know what he did to us." And later on, I would indeed find out what that meant. I researched old newspapers and managed to piece the story together. Long ago, a well-respected mortician had lived in the house. The mortician could not locate a place in the town to perform his work on. As such, he built his own home and office space. The bedroom was in the upper level, his funeral home was the mid-level, the basement, as you can guess, was the mortuary. That's when I figured out why there were 4 drains in the basement. Decades had passed, when suddenly, someone well-respected in the community was brought to jail. He was suspected of abusing the professional position he had with a moral cause. I couldn't find any more information about the incident, likely because of the crime's sensitive nature. I did read that the punishment this man received was essentially a slap on the wrist. After spending a brief amount of time in jail, the home was stripped of all value by that perpetrator and left town well before his trial began. No one ever heard from him again. I began to put the pieces together. This man must have been the mortician. The words said to me by whatever that thing was remained embedded in my memory. "You know what he did to us." The mortician had a burning desire to create a home that accommodated his business. The things he did to those human bodies in his basement were things I would rather not discuss. But at least now I knew what he had done to them. I will never forget his expression. The ghost hunter said to me with fear in his tone. There was no color in the ghost, his face, as he went on. His beard was all white, but barely distinguishable from his pale skin. I apologized for asking. He dismissed me and left. I feel terrible for making the ghost hunter relive that traumatizing moment. As time goes by, that ghost hunter eventually faded from my memory. That is, until earlier last week. I was moving into a new house with my new fiancé. After taking some boxes and storing them in the basement, I noticed a slotted drain directly in the middle of it. That's when I began to worry. And thanks to the ghost hunter, I may know why. I hope you enjoyed today's video. Have you ever heard or encountered any paranormal event? Let us know in the comment below. We will draw your story and share it with the world. Don't forget to click like, subscribe.
Back. Who else do I see running towards me? No one other than my future wife to be. I'm smiling ear to ear. I really did it. Rose is gonna fall in love with me now. She gets closer and closer. I open my arms. This was gonna be the first time we embraced each other passionately. My body was ready. I opened my arms to catch her, and then this story takes place back in the 5th grade, way before I became young Don the Sauce God. Back then, I was just Lil Don. Now, as you can probably guess from the title, there was indeed a girl. Now, this girl played a very special role in my life because she was the first girl to make me have the thought, oh snap, Asian girls are pretty hot. Now stop, don't go there. Listen, I'm just being real with you, alright? I grew up in Jamaica, okay? It's like 98% black people. And that's not an exaggeration. That's it's pretty spot on. I say that to say that I knew that black women were beautiful from day one, my G. There is no short supply of hot black girls where I'm from. So that was always a given. Black girls are hot. Then of course, your boy grew up watching cable, aka white TV. Whenever I hear like, how come y'all can have black entertainment television, but we can't have white entertainment television. I'm like, what? My G, that's literally what cable is. AMC, Hallmark, USA, CNN, Fox, Stars, HBO, Nick, TV Land. Like until very recently, I ain't see too many black people on these channels, B. And I'm not mad about it. Times are different. And furthermore, in this day and age, you obviously don't need to be on cable to be a successful entertainer and have a large audience. But the point I'm making is that I grew up watching cable. So I grew up watching white people. So from a young age, I knew that white girls were pretty hot. And of course, if black girls are hot and white girls are hot, then by default, Spanish girls are gonna be hot too, B. Because let's be honest, right? What do Spanish people look like? Spanish people look like someone created a slider and put black people on one side and white people on the other side. And then just played with the slider to get different types of Hispanic people. So yeah, if black girls are hot and white girls are hot, then yeah, Spanish girls are obviously gonna be hot too. Like, you can have a black dude and a white girl, or a black chick and a white guy. They could get together and end up having a kid that looks like he's straight out of Puerto Rico. But there's no combination of black, white, and Hispanic that I've ever seen that results in some Mulan looking chick, you feel me? Like, Asian girls have a completely different aesthetic. And since Asians were even less represented on cable than black people when I was a kid, as well as the fact that Asian people make up less than 1% of the population in Jamaica, I managed to make it all the way to the 5th grade without ever having the thought, Asian girls are beautiful. That was until I saw Rose. Now, Rose was adorable, my G. Like, I thought she was one of the prettiest girls I have ever seen. And the moment I became aware of her existence was the moment that I decided that I had to make her like me. So in no time at all, Rose and I became friends. Best friends, actually. And that was cool for a while. I even ended up joining the track team just so I could spend a little more time with her. Now, I hated track and field. Like, I was good at it, meaning that I could run pretty fast. But I hated just running around in a circle all day. The blazing hot Jamaican sun. Like, the only reason I stuck to it was because it meant I could be around Rose for a couple more hours after school every day. And even though I didn't tell her how I felt like she was mine and she just didn't realize it yet. Like, I just needed to impress her somehow. That will be the thing to open her eyes to how perfect we would be for each other. So Rose loved track, right? She loved athletic guys. Now, we're still in the 5th grade, so of course she never said that out loud, but I could tell that she was really drawn to and impressed by the 6th grade dudes who were the best on the team. There was this one dude in particular who she really seemed to admire. Let's call him Sean. Now, Sean was 1, older than me, and 2, light-skinned. And when I was little, I was insecure because of how dark I was. I used to think that being lighter-skinned as a guy made you more attracted to women, which of course couldn't be further from the truth. Trust me when I say that girls love this dark chocolate boy. But that's what I thought at the time. So in my head, this dude was already out of my league. But I thought I still had a shot. I figured that all I had to do was prove to her that I was a much better athlete